Hello everyone, I'm back after many months, or basically a month now, but I'm pretty slow uploading. I don't know, it's hard to get motivated. I want to get motivated. I want to make more videos. I want to get into it. I want to get good. But yes, I have read a book this time. I'm doing brief thoughts again because editing videos takes time. But I read a book for the first time in several years. I did read all of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books back in the day, but those are children's books, they don't count. But this is a light novel, so still very simple. I don't have to hold a dictionary next to me, for most of it at least. But hey, it's from the Monogatari series, obviously. If you're watching this video, you are probably an anime fan, and you probably know about the Monogatari series if you haven't lived under a rock for the past 5 years. The most popular harem. I mean, if you consider it a harem, it's got the most popular girls. They're the best drawn. There's a beautiful drawing by Vofan of Kizshot, or Shinobu, as she's more commonly known. But yes, this is the first book from the vertical release in the box set, because my mate let me borrow this. He bought the limited edition box set of the first season, and let me borrow the first book. And I finally read it, and I really enjoyed it. Yes. I've watched quite a lot of the anime series. I've watched up to Tsuki, but I'm going to pretend I haven't watched any of it for this review of this book, because this is a prequel. It's set before all of them. It's the beginning of the story chronologically, so I can talk about it separately from the anime. But yeah, Kizumonogatari is the first book, and it follows Koyomi Araragi, who is a high school student. He's kind of struggling. He's not struggle. He just doesn't really care about focusing in subjects. The story is told from his perspective, narrated from his perspective anyway, from what he understands. And he's good at maths and that, but he's a bit bored. Spring break's about to start, and he walks outside. He's walking down the street to go home or whatever, and he sees a Missy class president, the very clever Tsubasa Hanekawa. And a gust of wind comes along and rides her skirt straight up, and he sees her panties. Clear as day, and there's a whole paragraph in detail about how beautiful, how mind-opening this moment was for him. But yeah, he sees it, and he's like, oh shit, and she notices, she gets all flustered, she follows him, she has a conversation with him, and he tries to blow her off. She's like, nah, I need to talk to you now. And then, yeah, the story evolves from there. Later that night, he's going to buy pornography from the bookstore, and he has a plan to buy other books with it so he doesn't look weird. I would probably do the same thing, because that's quite relatable. But yeah, he's coming home and he hears a scream down the road. A really loud, piercing scream. He runs down and he finds this woman with all her limbs torn off. You can probably guess who it is. It's Shinobu, of course. And he runs over to her when she screams help, and she bites his neck. She's a vampire. Wow. And she makes him a vampire, because in this world, when a vampire bites another vampire, they become a vampire too. Yeah, and that's basically it. The story evolves from there. But Araragi does not want to be a vampire. He wants to be human. But she's made him his thrall. And when you create a thrall, you lose a lot of your power. She de-ages and becomes a little girl again. And she's like, okay, I'll turn you back into a human, because you clearly still want to be human, if you collect all my body parts. They were stolen by 3 guys. All my limbs. So they agreed to it, and that's basically the story. It's a monster of the week kind of thing, with each section of the book devoted to fighting a different character. So his first target is dramaturgy, then episode, then guillotine cutter. They're all unique villains. They all have their own abilities, because one is half vampire, half human. One is a human and one is a vampire. And basically, yeah, he has to fight all of them individually on the school grounds, and he has to account for the damage and deal with the repercussions of that and how to sort that out so it's not noticed. Yeah, it's really well considered. And the book mainly focuses on developing the nature of vampires and how they relate to the real world, the aspects of their lives, and how, it gives you a lot of details, because Kishot is a very well-aged vampire. She's 700 years old, and she knows a lot. She's learnt a lot, of course, over her time. And it basically explores all the details of how they work, how they function. And it creates this really nice image of how vampires are made in this universe. That's what the book focuses on. It also explores themes, because Araragi and Kishot develop a relationship throughout the book, because they're tied to each other, because she has to survive through his blood and that sort of thing. It explores themes of like losing your sense of self, because Araragi becomes a vampire, of course, and he's like gained all these new abilities, and what you have to deal with when becoming a vampire. But it's very character driven. There's a lot of dialogue between several different characters, and there's only a few characters that appear. He kind of disappears for a couple of weeks. His parents don't know where he's gone. You don't even hear about them. You don't hear a single line of dialogue from them. But yeah, it focuses on those sort of themes. It's quite interesting. The first half of the book's probably better because it has more interesting metaphors and similes and such, But the second half is more straightforward because it's like becoming more climactic and just getting to the point, delivering on the story. I feel like maybe Nisio Isin wanted to just, catch up and get through the rest of the first part of the story. So he did that. But it's still entertaining. The dialogue is still really interesting. The conversations they share. He likes to do a lot of wordplay where like he spells words in weird ways. Like the word naive, he writes in one piece of dialogue, Kishot says naive, and the umlaut's above the E. Then it's above the I when she repronounces it. But it doesn't make sense because you can't understand it. But yeah, it's quite interesting. Tsubasa Hanekawa is a really odd character because like she just meets him this day and she's like, I like you. I want to be friends with you. She gives him her phone number. And then she basically keeps visiting him in the cram school, which they hide at, because Kishot needs to hide from Guillotine Cutter and that, because they all want to steal her body to get her powers as a vampire. That's why they were nicking her limbs in the first place. But yes, they have to hide, and Tsubasa comes every day and gives him like supplies and stuff and how to prepare. She gives him like high school action manga so he can like learn the powers of them, so he understands like what he can do as a vampire. Which is quite interesting, quite entertaining. Quite a few references in the book. It's also quite meta as well, because the characters have conversations about how this wouldn't work in an anime adaptation, but clearly it does, because there is one. Because like the stuff is so graphic. No anime adaptation for this. But yeah, Tsubasa Hanekawa was like almost too good to be true. She just like helps him so much, and she considers so many things. It's almost odd how perfect she is. I mean, she's written to be like this really intelligent character, who also, is forthright, knows what to do in any situation. But yeah, she's almost too perfect. And Meme Oshino, the other character, his relationship with him and Kishot is a bit more strange. It's a bit more mysterious because he's just there. He's another character. And he gives Araragi advice throughout the book. In fact, one of the best experiences I had reading this was on page 144, if I remember the exact page. Was where basically one of the details about vampires was that they can regenerate, right? And Araragi is like, well, I realised that how can Araragi regenerate all his limbs that quickly? And Kishot's also a vampire, and she's giving him her abilities. He's as powerful as her. She's given him his abilities, and why can't she regenerate her limbs? And it's explained on the exact same page. I had this thought because Meme Oshino explains this to Araragi because he asks him the same question I just had. And he's like, if it's, the point is body parts have to disintegrate for them to regenerate. So if the limbs are taken as whole, they don't actually get destroyed. They can't regenerate. So that was really interesting. I loved how like that the moment that popped into my head, it was answered the same page. So yeah, very consistent. Every rule that Nisio Isin writes into the book, he understands and he never forgets. He's not like Araki. The aesthetics of vampires is really cool. They don't have shadows. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting aesthetic elements to them. Much more, and like in the sun, they just ignite immediately. There's a really dramatic moment when Araragi first walks out into the sunlight and just burns, but then he regenerates and burns. He's in constant pain, and Kishot saves him. But yeah, that's really interesting. A really cinematic moment that would work well in animation, and I'm excited to see them eventually. But that happens, and she saves him, and that's when he discovers he's a vampire. Much more interesting than like Twilight, where they just sparkle. Like, it's fucking boring. I don't give a shit. So shit. This is way more interesting. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. The prose gets less interesting towards the back end, but other than that, it's a really good read. The dialogue's really solid. The characterization's really solid. Kishot often like monologues about like what vampires are like and how like 9 out of 10 of them apparently die from boredom because they live for so long, which does make sense. They just get so bored. And yeah, certain things later on make more sense once they are developed, because from earlier on, they're quite confusing, but they are all explained. There's no like loose ends by the end of it. It's all wrapped up as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's a really well told story, and it's the first chapter. I really enjoyed it, and I'd recommend it. So yeah, I'm glad I read this. Check out Kizumonogatari, Mount Tail. Gonna watch the anime soon, can't wait. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.